the general theme is how does it feel to be a hypocrite?
Right. Well, he sounds like a royal dirtbag.
I was wrong about something.
Magnificent! Magnificent! Magnificent!
If we can be with ourselves, if we can understand ourselves, we can love.
It's not my fault nobody can understand what you're saying.
Let's go while we're young.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, just introduce yourself and tell me what you ate for breakfast.
Difficulties to see why I can't get on the screen. There we are. I believe I am here. I'm there, whatever that means. No breakfast this morning. It's too early. I did have some coffee though. It's delicious coffee, Shiny brand coffee. So if you go to the website, you can check it out. But we're going to talk about the 4 virtues of Stoicism. And I got an interesting message when I woke up this morning, and I haven't replied back to it yet. So at any rate, but it was like, well, why are you going to talk about that? You know, they've been around for 2,000 years. We already know what they are, and we have them really mastered and figured out. And, you know, from where this came from, I was thinking, yeah, you are not living by what the virtues of Stoicism, at least certainly not online. You're not living by these virtues of Stoicism. So I really believe I like to study this stuff. You know, I haven't studied it for years, but Stoics I've just been fascinated by them because I think that they really started to study philosophy, obviously, in more deep and broad ways. They also as what we would call psychology and stuff today. And I believe, and I'm convinced that we are not evolved, as like people like to say, that we're so evolved from 2,000 plus years ago. There are so many of these writings from that period that we can really see that, you know, from an emotional standpoint and from personal relation standpoint, we just aren't. We're just not evolved. In fact, I would even possibly go as far to say that we've devolved from some of those things since then and what they really try to do. So if you see on your screen, that's the tumbler that I'm going to give away today. So make sure that in the hashtag virtues, and that will put you in the running here for that giveaway. So let's see if we can't get the virtues on the screen here as well. And so that you can see this. Boy, let's see here. We're going to have to redo this. I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but for some reason, this kind of stuff happens every now and then with good old technical difficulties. So let's try this again. There we are. All right. So I think we've got it. So with these Stoics, they believed that if you could essentially dig in and master these 4 virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, that they were really about the only things that you needed to have a flourishing life. That they were, not only were they basically necessary to have a flourishing life, they were also sufficient. That was a sufficient way to have and manage a good, you know, livable, flourishing life. And so the Stoics, they believe that everything in of value, I suppose, that it flows from these things in life, in these virtues. They didn't believe that you know, power and any kind of wealth or any kind of possessions were where it was at. And I think that's very attractive to me. It was believed that the development of virtue could actually also bring a massive change in a person's life, emotional change, their emotional life. You can move from bad irrational emotions into a good, wise, based understanding of our emotions if you dug into these virtues and stuff. And so I asked myself this question when I was looking at this about a week ago and trying to lay out what to talk about on the show. And I asked myself the question, is it possible that this philosophy from 2000 years ago would be relevant and something that we should dig into more today? And I actually came up with the answer, absolutely. One of the things that is so interesting to me is where names come from. What's in a name, right? And so there's this thing. It's a covered, it's a covered canopy. Think of it as a storefront that you go to, and they have a canopy kind of overhanging, the storefront and things like that. So it was called a stoa in the 3rd century BC in Athens, and that's where that's where the name Stoics came from, because they would meet under this canopy and they would talk about these virtues and these philosophies and things, and therefore that's where that discipline of Stoicism came from. It came from a canopy. It's really remarkable to me that some of these things and how they happen. So they took these 4 virtues, as I said, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. And while they maintained that these were good and sufficient ways of living and flourishing and things like that, they also understood that other external things that are possessions, maybe, a fancy chariot or whatever, you could rationalize that and use that and gain those things as long as you didn't covet those things, as long as those things never became any type of main focus, that they were more or less a byproduct, if you will, to these 4 virtues, and that they were just acquired because you were able to make some of the right decisions and do some of the good things that you were doing. But I think that it makes a lot of sense that wisdom would be kind of the core or the surrounding of these other virtues, and so that stands out as the virtue in these 4, I would think, and it makes sense because everything would kind of revolve around what our knowledge is, and what that wisdom that we can bring to things like courage, and wisdom we can bring to justice, and wisdom we can bring to temperance. Aristotle, like the Stoics, they were concerned about not only understanding and looking at these virtues, but applying them to life. And without that core of wisdom, they basically believe that you couldn't do that. It would be too difficult, that you could have all the courage in the world, you could have all the justice in the world, in your own internal, and then display it externally, and all the temperance in the world. But if you didn't have wisdom, you wouldn't know and understand how to do it. So practical wisdom to them meant using philosophy to understand how to act and respond to circumstances, situations, and everything that would always that do bombard us every single day, whether that be a good circumstance or a bad circumstance. That practical wisdom just meant using those things to understand what was happening. And so one of the key concepts in Stoicism was, maybe even the most important, was understanding what was within our control and what was not in our control. And so you need a lot of wisdom to be able to discern those things. And so it kind of, you kind of boil it down to how you respond, because that's what we have control of, right? And they understood that and they studied it. There seems to be this gap between what is outside. Maybe you could even call it like an outside stimulus, right? Outside circumstances that are poking at us all the time, and what our response is to those things. Like there's this gap in there. And in the gap, there's always an opportunity and always a sovereign human freedom to choose how to act. We have that ability within us. And so the study of these things and how to be more wise was a huge focus for them. I'm already going over 10 minutes here again. I apologize. I know I've gotten a lot of messages to keep it down. It's more helpful to keep the time down a little bit. But some of these things I get kind of excited to talk about. But for the Stoics, then we'll wrap it up with this. For the Stoics, wisdom begins with basically differentiating between things that we can control and things we can't. That was really the core of what wisdom was. It was between what is truly important, and what isn't important. It's between knowing the benefits of these virtues that only they can bring in relationship to the perils that we have in being attached to external things like, wealth. They even would talk about external things as in health, that we would covet those things too much, and even status, of course, that we covet too much. So they really understood differentiating between those things was really the core importance of wisdom. So we, of course, we have, let's do this again. We have virtues in here today for our hashtag. Hopefully you got that in. If I win, I'll just do it again. So stick with me here and we'll get at it. See where we're at today for the tumbler. Minnesota girl wins. I got that other tumbler sent out. So, hey, thanks for playing. I really appreciate it. It's fun. This is fun for me. I don't know. I hope it's fun for you as well. And I'm learning through this. I'm trying to grow and get better and all these things and keep playing. This is a computer system. I have nothing to do with it. I have no idea how it all works. It's within this system that I use for doing live broadcasts here. So it's like roulette, I suppose. But at any rate, I hope that your Tuesday is fantastic. We're going to dig into courage, justice, and temperance. Probably be able to get to most of them tomorrow, at least two of them, as we dig into this virtues of Stoicism and things. So, hey, if you're in Minnesota or in some of these storm areas that are kind of supposed to be coming, make sure that you stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You know what I just saw?
Who is this guy?
I call myself podcast because of my podcast.
I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.
So it's done. It's done.